The silence was deafening. Even after months of training, nothing could have prepared me for the absolute stillness that enveloped the Martian surface. The constant noise of the life support systems in my suit was the only reminder that I was still alive, breathing, existing on this desolate, alien world. My footsteps left distinct marks in the red dust as I walked towards the crater. With every step, I felt the weight of history, not just of humanity, but potentially of something much older and more mysterious. I am Dr. Marcus Reeves, astrobiologist and leader of the first manned mission to Mars. Our arrival on the red planet 3 days ago was hailed as the greatest achievement in space exploration. Little did they know that we were about to unearth something that would challenge everything we thought we knew about our existence in the universe. The signal we detected from deep space led us here, a pattern too complex to be natural, emanating from the depths of a Martian crater. Our rovers and probes were unable to decipher its origin. It would take human eyes, human touch, human intuition to unravel this mystery. As I approached the edge of the crater, Commander Chen's tense voice crackled on my communicator. "Marcus, the readers are going crazy. Whatever's down there is emitting more energy than our entire base. Be careful." I nodded silently, my heart hammering against my ribs. The descent was slow, every movement calculated. The terrain was treacherous, centuries of erosion making the surface unstable. Finally, I reached the bottom of the crater, and that's when I saw it. A black monolith rose out of the red dust, its glass-smooth surface reflecting the stars above. It was impossibly old, yet it seemed to have been built yesterday. Complex symbols pulsed with ethereal blue light along its sides, forming patterns that defied comprehension. My hand trembled as I extended it towards the surface of the monolith. Millimeters before contact, a voice filled my mind. It wasn't a sound, but thoughts that weren't mine, words in a language I'd never heard, but somehow understood perfectly. "Welcome, explorer. Long time no see." I staggered backwards, almost losing my balance on the uneven ground. "Chen," I gasped into the communicator. "We have first contact. I repeat, we have first contact." Chen's reply was cut off by a high-pitched hum. The monolith began to vibrate, the blue light intensifying until it became almost blinding. The voice in my mind returned, stronger now. "We are the last of the Atlanteans. Our legacy, buried on your homeworld for millennia, has finally awakened. And now you have found us here, in our last refuge." Images flooded my consciousness, a civilization beyond my comprehension, technology that seemed magical, and a cataclysm that took them to the stars. I saw Mars, not as the barren wasteland it is today, but lush and alive. And I saw Earth, with structures that defied gravity and logic, built by hands that were not human. But how? I managed to articulate, my voice trembling. "Atlantis is a myth, and even if it were real, how did you get to Mars?" The answer came not in words, but in a torrent of knowledge that threatened to overwhelm my mind. Eras of history compressed into seconds, secrets of the universe revealed, and then forgotten in the blink of an eye. "We are older than your myths, child. We walked among the stars when your ancestors were still struggling to master fire, but our time has passed. Now it's your turn." The humming increased, and I felt as if every atom in my body was vibrating in tune with the monolith. The blue light expanded, enveloping me completely. "The choice is yours, Marcus Reeves. Accept our legacy and unlock the potential that your species has barely begun to understand. Or step back and allow us to continue our millennia-long slumber." My mind spun with the implications. Whatever I chose would change the course of human history forever. The weight of that decision was overwhelming. With my heart in my throat and my hands shaking, I stepped forward. "I accept." The moment the words left my lips, the world around me exploded in light and sound. I felt as if every cell in my body was being rewritten, my mind expanding to accommodate vast oceans of knowledge. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The silence returned, deeper and emptier than before. The monolith had disappeared, leaving only a soft depression in the Martian dust. I fell to my knees, panting, my mind struggling to process what had happened. Slowly, I realized that I could hear the frantic shouts of Chen and the rest of the team through the communicator. "I'm fine," I finally replied, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "But nothing will ever be the same again." As I stood up in the empty crater, looking at the alien sky above, a certainty solidified in my core. Our mission to explore Mars was over. Our mission to redefine humanity had only just begun. The return to base was a blur. Every step I took seemed to take me through eons of knowledge and experience. My mind was buzzing with information that I could barely comprehend, let alone articulate. Commander Chen's voice sounded distant and muffled in my ears when I finally reached the decompression chamber. "Marcus, for God's sake, what happened down there?" I stared at him through the visor of my helmet, realizing for the first time how primitive our equipment now looked. How could we have thought we were ready to explore the stars with such rudimentary technology? I don't know how to explain it, Chen," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. "Something has changed. Everything has changed." The next few hours were a whirlwind of medical examinations, interrogations, and psychological tests. My crewmates watched me with a mixture of fascination and fear. I could feel their minds, their emotions, like waves crashing against the shore of my newly expanded consciousness. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, our chief medical officer, frowned as she examined my test results. "Your brain activity is off the charts, Marcus. We're seeing wave patterns that we've never documented before in humans. And your DNA, there are changes that I don't even know how to begin to explain." I nodded, not surprised. I could feel the changes taking place inside me, as if every cell in my body was being rewritten, optimized. "It's the heritage of the Atlanteans," I explained, the words coming out of my mouth before I could think about them. "They are masters of genetic manipulation and neuroplasticity." Chen, who had been watching silently from the corner of the room, stepped forward. "Marcus, you need to tell us exactly what happened in that crater. Who are these Atlanteans? What do they want?" I closed my eyes, trying to organize the whirlwind of information in my mind. "They were an ancient civilization. More ancient than we can imagine. They walked the earth hundreds of thousands of years ago, building a society that would make our current technology look like children's toys." I opened my eyes, seeing the shock and disbelief on the faces around me. But something went wrong. A cataclysm, a war, maybe both. They fled, scattering to the stars. Some came to Mars, building one last fortress of their civilization. "But why didn't we find evidence of this before?" asked Dr. Tanaka, his voice mixing skepticism and fascination. "Because they didn't want to be found," I replied simply. "Not until we were ready." Chen crossed his arms, his rigid posture betraying his tension. "And now? What do they want from us?" I hesitated, knowing that my next words would change everything. "They want us to complete their journey, that we carry on their legacy and become more." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the fear, excitement, and confusion emanating from my teammates in almost tangible waves. It was Dr. Tanaka who finally broke the silence. "Marcus, are you still yourself?" The question took me by surprise, forcing me to pause and really consider my condition. Was I the same man who had landed on Mars just a few days ago? The memories were there, my childhood in Florida, the years of study and training, the launch from Earth that seemed to have happened in another lifetime. But now there was so much more, knowledge and experiences that weren't mine, but had somehow become an integral part of who I was. "I am myself," I replied slowly, "but I am also more. It's like I've lived 1,000 lives, learned the secrets of the universe, and then come back here with all that knowledge." Chen stepped forward, his eyes fixed on mine. "And what exactly do you intend to do with all this knowledge, Dr. Reeves?" I could feel the weight of his question, the implications behind it. Chen was worried, not just about my safety or sanity, but about what I could represent for the mission, for the Earth. "I want to share it," I replied, feeling the truth of those words as I uttered them. The Atlanteans didn't choose me to be a lone guardian of their secrets. They want me to be a bridge, a catalyst for the next stage of human evolution. I held out my hand, focusing my thoughts. Before the astonished eyes of my companions, tiny particles of Martian dust began to rise from the ground, dancing in the air in complex patterns. "This is just the beginning," I said softly, as the dust formed a miniature representation of the solar system. "There is so much we can do, so much we can become." Dr. Tanaka took a step back, her face a mixture of wonder and apprehension. Chen, on the other hand, stood firm, his eyes never leaving mine. "What if we don't want this evolution?" he asked, his voice calm but fraught with tension. I let the dust fall gently back to the floor. "It's not an imposition, Chen. It's an offer. A chance to transcend our limitations, to heal our planet, to reach for the stars not as explorers groping in the dark, but as heirs to a cosmic legacy." I looked at each of my companions, feeling their turbulent emotions. "I know it's scary. Believe me, I'm just as scared as you are, but I'm also full of hope. For the first time, we have the chance to really make a difference, not just for humanity, but for all life in the galaxy." Chen finally broke eye contact, wiping his hand across his face in a tired gesture. "We need to inform Mission Control about this. They'll want to—" His words were interrupted by a shrill alarm. The base lights flashed, changing to emergency red. "What's going on?" shouted Dr. Tanaka, running to the nearest terminal. With a jolt, I realized that I could feel the disturbance, not just through the base's systems, but through the planet itself. Something was coming, something ancient, powerful, and definitely not human. "Get ready," I said, my voice laden with the weight of Atlantean knowledge. We're not the only ones the Atlanteans left behind in this solar system, and not all of them are willing to share their legacy. As chaos ensued in the base, I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake in accepting the Atlanteans' gift. But it was too late to turn back. Our real mission on Mars had only just begun, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The deafening roar of the base's alarms seemed distant compared to the hum of information flooding my newly expanded mind. While my companions ran frantically to their stations, I remained motionless, my eyes closed, trying to decipher the signals emanating from the depths of Mars. "Marcus," Chen's voice cut through my concentration. "We need you here, now." I opened my eyes, focusing on the chaos around me. Chen was at the main terminal, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he tried to understand what was going on. Dr. Tanaka was checking the spacesuits, preparing for the worst. "Something is approaching the surface," I said, my voice strangely calm amid the panic. "Something ancient, something the Atlanteans left behind." Chen gave me an incredulous look. "How can you know that? Our sensors are barely working." I walked over to the terminal, placing my hand on the screen. Instantly, the base's systems responded to my touch, displays lighting up with information that even our most advanced instruments shouldn't be able to detect. "There," I pointed to a pulsating red dot on the three-dimensional map of Mars that was now floating above the terminal. "Approximately 5 kilometers north of the base. It's rising rapidly." Dr. Tanaka approached, her eyes wide with amazement. "What is it?" I closed my eyes again, letting the Atlantean knowledge flow through me. "A guardian," I replied, the words coming out of my mouth as if they came from someone else. "A biomechanical construction created by the Atlanteans to protect their secrets, and now to test us." "Test us," Chen repeated, incredulous. "That sounds like a threat, Marcus. We need to evacuate, get back to the ship and—" "No," I interrupted, opening my eyes. "Running away is not an option. This is the next step. The Atlanteans didn't just give me knowledge, they gave us a chance to prove that we are worthy of their legacy." The ground shook beneath our feet, and the displays showed an alarming seismic reading. The Guardian was approaching the surface. "What if we fail this test?" Dr. Tanaka asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed, the weight of responsibility pressing down on my shoulders. "Then humanity loses its chance to transcend. And we probably won't be here to mourn it. Chen cursed softly, wiping his hand across his face. Good, no pressure then. What do we do now, Mr. Chosen by the Atlanteans? I ignored the sarcasm in his voice, understanding his fear and frustration. We need to prepare for the confrontation, not with weapons, but with knowledge and determination. I moved my hands over the terminal, my mind connecting directly with the base's systems. Diagrams and schematics began to appear on the screen, showing modifications and improvements to our suits and equipment. This, I said, pointing to a particularly complex drawing, will allow us to communicate directly with the Guardian. And this, I moved to another schematic, will give us a chance to survive if things go wrong. Dr. Tanaka examined the diagrams, her initial skepticism giving way to scientific curiosity. That's incredible. But how are we going to build all this in time? I smiled, feeling the Atlantean knowledge flow through me. Leave that to me. Chen, I need you and the team to prepare the basic costumes. Dr. Tanaka, can you help me with the modifications? For a moment, I thought Chen was going to protest, but then he nodded abruptly, recognizing the seriousness of the situation. Right. But if it goes wrong, Marcus... I know, I interrupted softly. It's my responsibility. The next few hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. My hands moved with a precision and skill I never knew I possessed, molding technology that was decades, if not centuries, ahead of our current science. Dr. Tanaka worked alongside me, her eyes shining with a mixture of fear and excitement as she absorbed each new concept I introduced. Finally, when the last helmet had been modified and the last circuit had been soldered, we gathered in the decompression chamber. The ground had stopped shaking, but we could all feel the tension in the air, the calm before the storm. Remember, I said, looking at each of my companions, the Guardian is not our enemy. It's a test, a chance to prove ourselves. Don't attack unless it's absolutely necessary. Chen nodded stiffly, checking his suit one last time. What if it is necessary? Will our weapons make any difference against this thing? I shook my head. Probably not. Our best defense is our mind, our ability to reason and adapt. The Atlanteans value intelligence and wisdom above brute force. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, his eyes meeting mine. Marcus, what if you're wrong about all this? What if it's just a hallucination induced by some kind of alien radiation? For a moment, doubt crept into my mind. What if she was right? What if I was leading my team to their deaths based on the fantasies of a disturbed mind? But then I felt the flow of Atlantean knowledge again, the certainty of their heritage. It's not a hallucination, Yuki. It's real. All of this is real. And it's about to change everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. The sound of writhing metal echoed through the base, making us all turn to the outer hatch. Something huge and impossible was out there, waiting for us. It's time, I said, my voice steady despite the fear that threatened to consume me. Remember what we discussed. Follow my lead and, above all, keep an open mind. What we are about to experience is beyond anything humanity has ever faced. As the hatch began to open, revealing the Martian landscape and the monstrous silhouette rising against the alien sky, I couldn't help but wonder, were we really ready for this? Was humanity prepared to make this evolutionary leap? There was no more time for doubt. The Atlantean Guardian was here, and with him, the future of humanity hung in the balance. We took the first step out of the base, towards our destination. The final test had begun. The Martian wind howled around us, carrying particles of red dust that bounced off our helmets. In front of us, rising against the orange sky, was the Atlantean Guardian. It was a sight that defied comprehension. A colossal biomechanical structure, over 30 meters tall, its shape vaguely resembled a humanoid being, but with impossible proportions and appendages that moved in ways that defied the laws of physics we knew. "My God," Chen whispered through the communicator, his voice shaking slightly. "What is that thing?" I took a step forward, feeling the Atlantean knowledge pulsing in my mind. "It's the Guardian," I replied, my voice strangely calm. "A construct left by the Atlanteans to protect their secrets and to test us. As if responding to my words, the Guardian moved. Its head, if you could call it that, turned in our direction, and I felt an overwhelming presence pressing against my mind. "Get ready," I warned my team. "He's going to try to communicate." In the next moment, a wave of information invaded my consciousness. They weren't words or images, but pure concepts, ideas so complex and alien that they threatened to shatter my sanity. I staggered, almost falling to my knees. Beside me, I saw Chen and Dr. Tanaka also struggling to stand, their faces contorted into expressions of pain and confusion through the visors of their helmets. "Marcus," Dr. Tanaka gasped. "What's going on?" I forced myself to stand up straight, concentrating on the flow of information. Slowly, I began to decipher the Guardian's message. "It's a test," I explained, my voice strained with the effort. "He wants to know if we're worthy of the Atlantean legacy." Chen grunted, clearly struggling with the mental pressure. "And how exactly do we prove that?" Before I could answer, the Guardian moved again. One of its appendages extended towards us, the tip opening to reveal a shiny object. "It's an Atlantean artifact," I said, recognizing it instantly thanks to the knowledge implanted in my mind. "He wants us to solve a puzzle." Dr. Tanaka took a hesitant step towards the object. "What kind of puzzle?" "One that tests our understanding of the universe," I replied, moving to stand next to her. "Our understanding of physics, mathematics, biology, everything." Chen joined us, his expression a mixture of fear and determination. "What if we fail?" I swallowed, feeling the weight of the situation. "Then we've failed not just as individuals, but on behalf of the whole of humanity." The artifact floated down to us, hovering in the air between our bodies. It was a crystalline sphere, with complex patterns dancing on its surface. As we got closer, it expanded, projecting a three-dimensional hologram into the air around us. "It's a model of the universe," exclaimed Dr. Tanaka, her eyes wide with amazement. "Not just of our universe," I corrected, my new knowledge providing insights. "It's a model of multiple universes, all interconnected." Chen frowned, studying the hologram. "What should we do with it?" I concentrated, letting the Atlantean knowledge flow. "We need to reconfigure the model, show how the universes can be harmonized, how energy can flow between them without causing collapse." "But that's impossible," protested Chen. "It goes against everything we know about physics." I shook my head, a smile forming on my lips. "No, Chen, it goes beyond what we know. That's why it's a test. We need to think beyond our current limitations." Over the next few minutes, or was it hours? Time seemed distorted at that moment. We worked furiously on the cosmic puzzle. My hands moved almost of their own accord, guided by Atlantean knowledge, while Dr. Tanaka and Chen contributed their own insights and ideas. Slowly, the model began to change. Universes that had previously seemed in conflict began to align harmoniously. Energy flows that threatened to destroy entire realities were redirected, creating cycles of renewal and growth. Finally, with one last adjustment, the model stabilized. The crystalline sphere glowed brightly, then dissolved into particles of light that danced around us before dispersing into the Martian air. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then the Guardian's voice echoed in our minds, no longer an overwhelming torrent of information, but clear, distinct words. "You have passed the test. The legacy of the Atlanteans is rightfully yours." The Guardian began to move, its parts reconfiguring themselves in impossible ways. As we watched, stunned, it began to sink back into the Martian soil, leaving behind only a smooth crater and a set of crystalline structures emerging from the red sand. What happened?" asked Chen, his voice a mixture of relief and confusion. I took a step towards the crystalline structures, feeling the power and knowledge emanating from them. "We've gained access to the Atlantean archive," I replied, barely able to contain the emotion in my voice. "All the knowledge of their civilization, all their technology, is here for us." Dr. Tanaka approached, reaching out a trembling hand to touch one of the crystals. "It's incredible," she whispered. "But what do we do now?" I looked at my companions, then at the vast Martian desert around us, and finally at the sky, where the Earth shone like a distant blue dot. "Now," I said, feeling the weight of the future on my shoulders, "we begin our real mission, not just one of exploration, but one of transformation. We're going to take humanity to the next stage of its evolution." As we prepared to return to the base, carrying with us the first fragments of the Atlantean legacy, I couldn't help wondering, were we really ready for this power, for this responsibility? But looking at Chen and Dr. Tanaka, seeing the determination in their eyes, I felt a surge of hope. Perhaps, together, we could navigate this new, uncharted territory. Maybe we could be the guardians that humanity needed. Our journey was just beginning, and the universe, no universes, awaited. The return to base was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts. The Atlantean crystals, now safe in special containers, seemed to pulsate with an energy of their own, a constant reminder of the magnitude of our discovery. As soon as we entered the decompression chamber, the reality of our situation began to set in. Chen was the first to speak, his voice tense. "Marcus, we need to inform Mission Control immediately. They need to know what we've found here." I hesitated, feeling the weight of Atlantean knowledge in my mind. "I'm not sure that's wise, Chen. Think of the implications. If news of this discovery leaks out..." "If it leaks," Chen interrupted, his voice rising. "Marcus, this isn't something we can hide. We're talking about a technology that could change the course of human history," Dr. Tanaka intervened, her tone calm but firm. "Chen is right, Marcus. We can't make this decision alone. We have responsibilities, protocols to follow." I ran my hand over my face, feeling the weight of responsibility. Atlantean knowledge whispered in my mind, showing me visions of possible futures, some glorious, others terribly dark. "You don't understand," I finally said, my voice low. "This knowledge is dangerous. In the wrong hands, it could mean the end of everything we know." Chen took a step towards me, his eyes fixed on mine. "And who decides which hands are the right ones, Marcus? You." The tension in the room was palpable. I could feel the confusion and fear emanating from my companions, mixed with a burning curiosity about what we had discovered. Dr. Tanaka approached one of the containers, studying the crystals with obvious fascination. "What exactly can we do with this technology, Marcus? What is its scope?" I closed my eyes, letting the knowledge flow. "It's vast. Curing diseases, interstellar travel, manipulating reality itself. The Atlanteans had mastered all this and more." "My God," Chen whispered, the magnitude of the situation finally setting in. "This could end hunger, poverty, climate change. Or unleash wars like we've never seen before," I added darkly. "Imagine what governments or corporations would do to get their hands on that power." A heavy silence fell over us. The initial excitement of the discovery was giving way to a more sober understanding of the responsibilities we now bore. Dr. Tanaka was the first to break the silence. "So, what do? We can't just stay here on Mars forever, keeping this secret." I nodded slowly. "No, we can't, but we can't just hand it over to the world without preparation either." Chen crossed his arms, his posture tense. "Are you suggesting that we disobey direct orders? That we hide it from our superiors?" "I'm suggesting," I replied carefully, "that we be very careful about how we proceed. We need time to fully understand what we have on our hands before we decide on the next step." Dr. Tanaka nodded slowly. "That makes sense. But how do we justify the delay in our report?" I thought for a moment, then smiled slightly. "Well, technically, we're dealing with an archaeological discovery of unprecedented importance. We could argue that we need time to properly document and analyze it before making a full report." Chen didn't look entirely convinced, but I could see he was considering the idea. "And how long do you think we need?" "A few weeks at least," I replied. "Enough time for us to start deciphering some of the secrets of the crystals and formulate a plan to present our discovery to the world in a responsible manner." Dr. Tanaka was already moving towards her research equipment. "I'm going to start setting up some preliminary tests. If we're going to do this, we need to be methodical. Chen sighed deeply, then nodded. Right. I'll inform Mission Control that we've found artifacts of interest and that we need time for a proper analysis. But Marcus, he stared at me, if at any point I feel that this is getting out of hand, I will intervene. Understood? I nodded solemnly. Understood, Commander. As we prepared to begin our investigation of the Atlantean crystals, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and apprehension. We were about to delve into knowledge that could redefine human existence itself. In the weeks that followed, we worked tirelessly. Each new insight brought with it wonders beyond imagination and ethical dilemmas that kept us awake at night. We saw cures for diseases we thought were incurable, solutions to environmental problems that threatened our planet, and technologies that made our current science look primitive by comparison. But with each discovery, the pressure was mounting. Mission Control was growing impatient with our vague reports. Rumors began to circulate on Earth about what we might have found on Mars. And then, one particularly tense night, while we were discussing our options for the 1,000th time, the base's alarms began to sound. Chen rushed to the communications terminal, his face paling as he read the incoming messages. "What is it?" I asked, feeling a knot forming in my stomach. Chen turned to us, his eyes filled with concern. "An unauthorized spacecraft has just entered Mars in orbit, and they're demanding that we immediately hand over all the artifacts we've discovered." The silence that followed was deafening. Our time was up. The decisions we would make in the next few hours would shape not only our fate, but potentially the future of all humanity. I looked at the Atlantean crystals, feeling their power pulsing, calling to me. The knowledge in my mind offered possibilities, some tantalizing, others terrifying. "Prepare yourselves," I finally said, my voice steady despite the fear that threatened to consume me. "The real test is just beginning." The silence on the Martian base was oppressive, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the alarms and the low hum of the life support systems. Chen was glued to the communications terminal, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he tried to negotiate with the unauthorized ship. Dr. Tanaka and I were standing in front of the containers that held the Atlantean crystals, their secrets pulsing with an almost tangible energy. "How much time do we have?" I asked, my voice tense. Chen turned around, his face a mask of concern. "They've given us an ultimatum, 1 hour to deliver the artifacts, or they threaten to use force." Dr. Tanaka gasped. "They can't be serious. An armed conflict on Mars? It's madness." "It's the power of Atlantean knowledge," I replied darkly. "Some people will do anything to get it." Chen stood up, walking over to us. "Marcus, you're the only one who really understands what we have here. What are our options?" I closed my eyes, letting the Atlantean knowledge flow through me. Visions of possible futures danced in my mind, some glorious, others catastrophic. "We have 3 choices," I finally said, opening my eyes. "We can hand over the crystals, as they demand. We can try to hide them or destroy them, or what?" Chen pressed. "Or we can use the knowledge," I concluded, "right here, right now." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her eyes shining with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Use it how?" I took a deep breath. The Atlanteans had technology capable of bending space-time, of creating impenetrable force fields, even of communicating instantaneously across vast distances. "My God," Chen muttered. "Are you suggesting we use Atlantean weapons?" I shook my head. "Not weapons, protection, understanding, a chance to control the narrative." I walked over to the main container, placing my hand on its surface. The crystal inside reacted to my touch, glowing brightly. "If I can activate this," I explained, "I can create a barrier around Mars. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out, until we decide it's safe." "What about Earth?" Dr. Tanaka asked. "We can't just cut off all communication." "We won't," I replied. "In fact, we'll do the opposite. We'll use Atlantean technology to transmit the truth, the whole truth, to every mind on Earth simultaneously." Chen looked skeptical. "Won't that cause panic? Chaos?" I nodded gravely. Probably, but it will also give everyone the chance to understand what's at stake, to make an informed choice about our future as a species. Silence fell over us as we considered the ramifications of such an action. It was a violation of privacy on a global scale, a revelation that would change the course of human history forever. What if people aren't ready? Dr. Tanaka asked softly. Maybe we'll never truly be ready, I replied. But the alternative is to let a powerful few decide the fate of us all. Chen walked over to the window, looking out at the Martian landscape. How much time do we have to decide? I checked my watch. 45 minutes. The commander turned, his eyes meeting mine. And you're sure you can do this? Control this power? I hesitated for a moment. The Atlantean knowledge in my mind was vast, but I was still human. I was still fallible. No, I finally admitted. I'm not sure, but I believe it's our best chance. Chen nodded slowly, then looked at Dr. Tanaka. Yuki, what do you think? The scientist was silent, her gaze fixed on the crystals. Finally, she spoke. Every great discovery in human history has brought with it risks and responsibilities. We can't run away from that now. Chen closed his eyes for a moment, as if bearing the weight of the world. When he opened them, there was a fierce determination in his gaze. Do it, he said simply. With a nod, I turned back to the crystals. I let my mind open completely to the Atlantean knowledge, feeling it flow through me like an electric current. My fingers danced over the surface of the container, activating sequences I didn't know I knew. The crystal began to glow, its light intensifying until it was almost painful to look at. I felt the energy building up, expanding, reaching beyond the limits of our base, beyond the surface of Mars, enveloping the entire planet in a protective embrace. And then, with a thought, I extended my consciousness towards Earth. Billions of minds opened up before me, a vast ocean of thoughts and emotions. For a moment, I was overwhelmed by the immensity of it all. But then, guided by Atlantean knowledge, I began to transmit. Not just information, but experiences. The touch of the monolith, the test of the Guardian, the wonders and dangers of the Atlantean legacy. I felt shock, fear, confusion, and finally, understanding spread through the collective consciousness of humanity. When I finally opened my eyes, I found Chen and Dr. Tanaka looking at me with a mixture of admiration and apprehension. It's done, I said, my voice hoarse. Chen checked the monitors. The ship, it's moving away, and we're receiving thousands of transmissions from Earth. Dr. Tanaka approached me, putting a hand on my shoulder. How are you feeling? I considered the question for a moment, as if we've just turned a page in human history. For better or worse, nothing will be the same now. As we gathered around the monitors, watching the initial reactions unfold, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of hope and apprehension. We had given humanity a chance to grow, to evolve, to become something more than we were. But the road ahead would be full of challenges, difficult decisions, and unpredictable consequences. I looked out of the window at the Martian landscape that had been the backdrop to our extraordinary journey. The red planet, once considered dead and barren, now pulsed with the secrets of an ancient civilization and the potential of an unimaginable future. Our mission on Mars was over, but our real journey, the journey of all humanity, had only just begun. As the Martian sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, I wondered, would we live up to the legacy entrusted to us? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the universe would never look the same again, and we, for better or worse, would be the architects of our own destiny among the stars.